Welcome to Reach Mind, Thoughts for Your Life Journey. Today, we're going to be talking about the Posse effect, which is about how we surround ourselves with people who are the supporters or people who may not be there for us. And I'd like to welcome again Andrew Middleton, who first wrote the article a week or so ago on the Posse effect. And it resonated such a lot for me and to others as I was reading their comment that I thought it was worthwhile having a podcast on. So tell me, Andrew, what made you think about writing this article on the Posse effect?
I guess I'd had an experience where I'd been out with, shall we say, people who weren't in my posse, and it was a less than fun experience. And it got me thinking, should I be spending less time with these people? And who are the people I should be spending time with? And the whole idea of posse came back in the Wild West. The cowboy rode with his posse, his trusted men who would be with him thick and thin. And I started thinking in those terms amongst the people I know. And definitely I have got a posse. And that's where the whole idea of the posse came from. There are people out there who I know, regardless of what's going on. If I spend time with them, it's valuable time. If I need help, they're there. And they're quite a mixed bunch as well. Being a slightly older chap like myself, you would perhaps expect my posse to be lots of older, middle-aged men, but actually it's quite varied. I've got some great youngsters there who really are so valuable. I've got people you wouldn't expect. And I guess that's the interesting thing about the posse. Sometimes difference can make a huge difference, if you like.
It's interesting you talking about the word posse. One of the words that I'm sure you would have come across is, I remember years ago with my coaching, when I was going through my coaching certification, and people talked about who is in your tribe.
Yeah, true.
Who's in your tribe? And some people said, oh, maybe that isn't an okay word. And what I want to circle back to, as you're describing that you have a whole host of different people who are in your posse, what sharpened your kind of thinking around that from this experience you had with these individuals that perhaps you didn't feel you had such a great time with?
I think wavelength is an important thing. We weren't on the same wavelength. We wanted different things out of this experience. And the time just didn't feel valuable. The time felt wasted to me. And maybe it was wasted to them as well, but there was a mismatch. Whereas when I talk to members of, I call it my posse, it always seems valuable time, valuable discussion, and it very equal as well. I think that's the other thing. You need them to have your back, but you've got to have their back as well.
So when you're talking about the variety of people who are part of your posse, are there a few traits or criterias that you have which enables you to connect with them?
I think when I do connect, it's very much instinctual. I don't think I have a checklist. I don't go down and say, yep, yeah. But you resonate with people in your posse. That being said, it's not always a natural fit. And sometimes it's worthwhile having people in your posse that actually perhaps on paper wouldn't fit because they bring something, I don't know, a little bit more different. They give you different perspectives, because I think sometimes you can build a posse in your own image, so to speak. People like you, and you do need a few people in there who are going to shake you up, but they need to be on that same wavelength as well. And that's probably what hit me with my recent experience, that I realized these people just were on such a different trajectory to me. It just didn't work.
But can you unpack the wavelength? Because I think it's an important element of it.
I mean, it's quite an interesting one, isn't it? Because I don't think again, it's not naturally being the same person as you, but it's perhaps having similar values, similar interests, similar ways of being. But with the caveat, as I've said, sometimes you do need people in there to shake it up a little bit and say things to you that others perhaps wouldn't. Not all exactly the same, but
No,
definitely.
I understand that. I think we don't want cookie cutters of ourselves.
Well, we're not doing ourselves a justice if we do that. If we get all the answers that we want, we just it's a confirmation bias, isn't it? Really, if that happens, need some people in your posse who are going to say different things. And I was just thinking, although this is perhaps not linked, but it is linked. I was thinking of the Belbin characteristics of high performing teams that actually you need some people who will go along with what's going on. You need some people who will shape what's happening, and some people who will bring you together, some people who will judge what's going on. And there's probably some very smart people out there who I haven't come across quite yet who've developed a methodology for this and could tell me what my posse should be. But it does seem that from a team dynamics, which I do know, that sort of idea of these different things, you perhaps need an ideas person on your posse as well to make you think, oh, that's a good idea.
I do think you need a variety of people.
Yeah,
And something that you touched on, which is, I think, around values. Values
yeah,
is an important element because we judge or maybe we interpret and see other people's behaviors based on our values. And I think values are they're like a guiding principle. But certainly for me, they
yeah,
are.
yeah, yeah,
And I don't mind in my posse or in my tribe people who are agitators
yeah.
as long as they are have some commonality
Yes.
around shared values. Yeah, and if there was somebody who was directly opposed to my values, I'm not sure the tension of that element would allow me to be friends with them.
I think you can have conversations with people who don't match your values outside of your posse, just to provide that sort of radical element and shake up thinking for yourselves. But you can see them for who they are. I think there is a very important thing in the posse, particularly as you get older, is to make sure that you have an age dimension. Because unfortunately, as you do get older, your posse will die off a little bit, which is a dreadful way of putting it.
So tell me about your demographic of your posse. Tell me what's the variety do you
The,
have
the
in there?
variety, I've got a couple of people in their late 70s who are amazing role models to me, who help me think, yes, I could do that. And it goes all the way down to early 20s. I've got people there, people in their 50s, 30s, I suppose the whole gamut. And I guess you have to give back to them as much as they give to you as well, because there's almost a bit of cross fertilization. Someone might be in your posse, but you might be in theirs, and their posse might be a completely different set of people. But I think that age thing and diversity in all its forms are really important because you get different perspectives, and that's the real value of a posse.
Yeah, it's also part of enriching our own life in terms of networks that we're
Yeah.
involved in. And for me, as you're talking about, it is some networks I'm closer to than others.
Yes.
Some part people in my posse, I'm not, they might be more transactional
Yeah.
rather than transformative in terms of deep and meaningful conversation. Because as you
Yes.
were talking, you were saying your posse, people who are in the 70s, they're like role models for
Oh,
you.
absolutely.
And I'm curious around what makes them role models for you, Andrew.
Because they've sussed what I haven't sussed yet.
And what's that?
One of them in particular is a very clever YouTuber. Another one is exploiting Amazon self-publishing. And also they've got different perspectives as portfolio workers. They're doing different roles traditionally not done by people in their 70s and 80s. And I'm sure they're going to head on into their 80s and they're still going to be working. And they're very much doing it their own way. And that helps me with the indie work I do to say, what is it? And I can see it up there. I could be doing that in the future.
Would you want to be doing
I don't,
YouTube?
I don't know. I want to try it and see if I like it. And I guess that's part of what I do now in my portfolio working. A lot of the time I'm working out, do I like it or not? Because then I'll continue doing it. And having people who can guide me and say, have you thought of this? Is really, really useful. I think there is another sort of element, just pottering it over it, is the size of your posse.
Yes.
And knowing that they have got your back and they're prepared to jump in when you need them. Because it's very easy to build a wide circle of people who you might ring them up and they might say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you for a month. They're not really in your posse. They haven't got your back.
No, because as you were talking, and I think that is right, for certainly from my perspective, that there's also and layers, aren't there,
Yeah.
of who is in your
Yeah.
posse. We can
Yes.
have lots of people we know, and they're just acquaintances.
Yes.
They're people in our network, and and maybe for some people that's all they have
Yeah.
is. Yet for someone like myself, what I need in terms of my posse, my tribe, is the interconnectedness of a
Mm.
core part of
Yeah.
my posse, which might be just one or two people
Yeah. Could
who
be.
I really I go for the things that I need, where
Mm.
I'm willing to be vulnerable, open. So for me, I think my inner layer is quite tight, and then it gets more bigger in terms of
Yeah.
size. And I think we can only do so much or connect with people
Yeah.
so much
Yeah.
in a day or in a week. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
You've just kicked off a really interesting thought in my mind, actually, in that when we create models of things, we create, say this was a model of a almost like a target going out. So the people that we're close to, not so close, and we band them up. I wonder if this model actually looks slightly differently, and it's a bit like a model of heat. So in the center is your red hot links, and slowly the heat dissipates to the fact that I'm not probably not describing myself well, but to the point that there are people on the periphery which are still add value, but a little bit lukewarmish.
I like that. It's like a volcano, it seems
It
to
is just
me, but
okay.
maybe
Yes,
it
it
isn't
gets
a
as the
volcano.
lava goes down the sides, it gets cooler and cooler. But if you
Yes.
want to toast a marshmallow, you need to be at the top.
Yes, yeah, you need to. And I guess that also leads for me to think about a lot of the research, like is it the blue zone, that
Yes.
talks about connection,
Oh my
talks
goodness. Yes.
having connection with like-minded people, or not the same, but
No.
like-minded people, having a sense around you can be yourself
Yeah.
without pretending to be showing up for people in a certain way. And when you have your posse, even though you might have different roles in
Yeah.
them, however, you're always going to be you in that. I don't know. Are
Yeah, I
you?
think you're right. The best posses. There's acceptance. There's acceptance that you are who you are. Because I think as soon as you start pretending you're someone else for your posse, you're going to fall down one day.
But
Because
go on.
authenticity.
Do people really show up in in a way that they are true to their own self?
I'm not sure people always sharpen your posse, but I guess I would hope that you in your posse are as authentically you as you can be.
Mm.
Because I think you might find that if suddenly you drop that facade, if you weren't, your members might not be there for you because they're buying into to a persona.
Yeah, they are. If you think about what we were talking earlier around Wimbledon, Wimbledon
Yes.
has a certain persona, doesn't
Yeah.
it? And there are people who buy into that because it
Yeah.
represents X, Y, and Z.
Mm.
And that becomes a part of their core identity. That becomes a part of their way of being. And it made me think about, I don't know whether you've ever watched this program called Friends and Families, and it was on Apple with John Hamm in it. And it was a wonderful description around social ecosystems, very affluent people, and what happens when one person who's part of this really well off community loses their job, but he doesn't
Yeah.
tell people. And he rediscovers what was real and what wasn't real. And yet we can all get into this. What I'm saying is materialism, or
Yes.
this aspects of what we think is constitute our posse, because we got the big house, the big car, the
Mm.
7 holidays a year, the going out for a meal, or our children going for fee paying schools. That I wonder how much space there is for people to be authentic. I don't know.
There's a real truth here that if you lose all of that, if you like in friends and family and suddenly you're not there, you soon work out who your truest members of your posse are, the ones who will be there for you regardless of all of the stuff that fits around it. And I think that's quite an important thing about posses. And it's really interesting. Just going off at a little tangent, I think men are quite bad at having posses. They confuse their work friends as being a critical component, and then they leave work and retire and find they have no friends except the truest ones of the people there, of the posse who still remain. Some men find they have no friends at all when they leave work.
It is interesting because when we talk about posses around gender lines,
Yeah,
I know that women connect on a personal level.
yeah,
Men connect around whether they do bike rides or they do
yeah,
running or they
yeah,
do, I don't know, Bitcoin,
yeah,
whatever. And it's always over things.
yes.
It's not about, I don't know how much, I have no insights into this at all, whether they ever, whether they ever expose their vulnerability around, apart from, oh, I got my knees done in
Yeah.
when
But
they're a
we're
runner.
very, very good at that as men. The superficial
Yes.
versus and I think that's tough for most men. I don't know many men. I'm lucky. I have got a couple of people in my posse who I would be very open and honest to about my situation and where I am. And actually, it's a joy sometimes to have those conversations because you think, thank goodness. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine who has got incontinence. Now, normally you wouldn't go down the pub and talk about incontinence, but the thing is, within a good posse, you can because they're looking out for you. And I've got one friend who we were talking about incontinence, and it was such a helpful conversation. I think for him, it gave again it gave me a sort of an idea of where life might end up and a gratitude that it's not a problem that I struggle with at the moment. You didn't expect this to be a podcast about incontinence, but it brings it home really where your posse members will take you versus those acquaintances when you have conversations like that.
What I'm thinking about, whether we collect people in our group because we have a shared hobby and that's it, or do we have people we have a shared hobby, and we can be open with them when we're struggling with something.
I think that's the best posses, are the ones we've got people like that. And that's probably the difference between a posse and a group of friends.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Actually, how would you do the distinction?
A group of friends, you might go out and have a bit of a laugh, but when it comes down to having those real conversations, you need people who've really got your back.
Yeah. I think what you're saying, Andrew, to me as we wind this up
Yeah,
is having a posse is very much a it's a two-way relation. It's not a
it is.
symbiotic, it's not a dependent kind of relationship. It's not a codependent kind of
No.
relationship. It's a relationship where you've got their back and they've got your back, and that
Yes.
you can call on them and say, I feel rubbish today. And can I just have 2 minutes where I can
Yeah.
just unpack this
Yeah.
with you without them having to sort me out?
Yes. I mean, so sometimes you might ask them to sort you out.
Could
Might
do,
be,
yes.
give me some advice, but
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be. They're
No,
just there.
no. And I think what the other thing I think finally I want to say is that your posse isn't transactional.
No.
It is about transformative in terms of both
Yeah.
of yours and theirs authenticity, I think.
Yeah. Yes. I think you're very right there. That it's not tit for tat. It's much more than that.
Any final words before we sign off?
No, when I wrote the post last week, it was very much as a knee-jerk reaction to a situation. And looking back, and really, I was just going to say thank you very much for helping me unpack it some more.
Always happy to help, Andrew. You sparked my curiosity, and it certainly resonated for me. And it made me think about my collection of, from Forrest Gump, the different chocolates
Yeah.
I have in my posse, basically.
Yes.
And not all of them are in the inner, and
Yeah.
some of them are in the inner outer. Anyway,
Yeah.
it just made me think about things differently.
Yeah. And some of them have got toffee that's too hard to chew, and some of them are so gooey in the centre that actually they really don't satisfy.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Andrew. If you're interested in working with me, connect with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, or www.nitisharma.com. And if you enjoyed the podcast, why not consider subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you have access to your podcast, and leave a review.